In the quiet hours before sunrise on August 11, 2025, Cape Canaveral was alive with a sense of controlled urgency. Engineers, technicians, and mission controllers moved with precision, each fully aware that every action they took was a step toward history. The KF-02 mission wasn't just another Falcon 9 launch, it was the second in a series of dedicated SpaceX flights for Amazon's Project Kuiper, a massive satellite internet network designed to provide global broadband access. The 24 KuiperSat satellites nestled within the rocket's fairing represented months of manufacturing, testing, and logistical coordination, all converging on this one critical moment. Weather had already played its hand over the previous days, delaying the mission multiple times due to heavy rain, gusty winds, and unstable conditions at both the launch site and the recovery zone. These repeated scrubs tested the patience of not only the launch team, but also thousands of viewers tuning in from around the world. When the day finally arrived with clear skies and calm winds, there was a collective sense of relief mixed with anticipation. Inside the Launch Control Center, rows of operators sat before glowing monitors, speaking in concise, technical bursts over headsets. Telemetry data streamed in real time, tracking everything from fuel temperatures to hydraulic pressures. On the pad, Falcon 9 stood tall, venting liquid oxygen in soft, ghostly streams that curled into the humid Florida air. The countdown clock ticked toward T-10 minutes, and the final polls from mission directors came in with the same reassuring word, go. Around the globe, live stream audiences leaned closer to their screens as the final automated sequence began. The rocket's flight computer took control, pressurizing propellant tanks and chilling the Merlin engines in preparation for ignition. At precisely 8:35 a.m. EDT, the calm was broken by a sudden, thunderous roar as all 9 Merlin 1D engines ignited, sending a shockwave across the launch site. The rocket rose slowly at first, then with increasing speed, clearing the tower and climbing into a backdrop of brilliant blue. Flames and exhaust billowed from the base, painting the morning sky with a fiery trail visible for miles. The sound of liftoff reached spectators seconds later, a deep, vibrating rumble that could be felt in the chest. On the live broadcast, the camera feed switched between ground views, onboard footage showing Earth receding below, and the calm yet focused expressions of SpaceX's mission controllers. The first stage burned for a little over 2 minutes before its engines shut down in a perfectly timed main engine cut-off. Within seconds, the stages separated, a clean, controlled maneuver captured by the rocket's own cameras. The second stage engine ignited, a single bright flame against the blackness of near space, carrying the payload toward its intended orbit. Viewers could see the curvature of Earth beneath the spacecraft, the vast blue fading into the thin line of the atmosphere. For the launch team, there was no pause for celebration. Every step of the mission was part of a carefully choreographed sequence that had to execute flawlessly. As the second stage pressed on, all eyes turned toward the next major milestone, the return of the first stage booster for another textbook landing. As the second stage powered deeper into the sky, the first stage booster B-1091 began its choreographed journey home. Having completed its primary burn, it coasted momentarily before initiating a precise flip maneuver to orient itself for the return trip. Small bursts from its cold gas thrusters kept it stable, while onboard computers calculated the trajectory needed to meet the waiting drone ship, a short fall of gravitas, stationed hundreds of miles away in the Atlantic Ocean. The booster's grid fins, 4 metal lattice structures, deployed and began subtly adjusting angle to steer the vehicle through the thin upper atmosphere. It was a ballet of technology and physics, each movement calculated down to fractions of a second. Then came the first of the critical burns, the boost back burn, which slowed the stage and nudged it onto a path toward its floating landing pad. In mission control, the split-screen broadcast gave audiences a double view: on the left, the booster falling back to Earth; on the right, the second stage forging ahead toward orbital velocity. For viewers, the drama was as much about the precision landing as it was about the satellites themselves. Atmospheric friction began to build, flames licked along the booster's sides, and thin wisps of plasma trailed behind as it entered denser layers of the atmosphere. The second burn, the entry burn, lit up 3 of the Merlin engines in a short, intense burst, slowing the rocket enough to survive the punishing forces of re-entry. At this altitude, the grid fins became more effective, making constant micro-adjustments to correct for winds and drift. Finally, at just over a kilometer above the ocean surface, the landing burn ignited a single Merlin engine throttling smoothly to bring the rocket down at the exact speed needed for a gentle touchdown. A few seconds later, the booster's legs unfolded in a rapid, mechanical snap, and B-1091 settled onto the drone ship's deck with the grace of a feather dropping onto water. The control room erupted in applause, not because it was unexpected, but because each successful landing reaffirmed that rocket reusability was no longer a dream, it was operational reality. High above, the second stage continued its mission. After a short coast phase to align its trajectory with the desired orbital plane, it performed the final engine burn to fine-tune altitude and speed. Once the rocket reached approximately 630 kilometers above Earth, the moment arrived that had been months in the making: payload deployment. The fairing had long since been jettisoned, and now, one by one, 24 Kuipersat satellites were released into the void. Each separation was smooth and controlled, with small pushers gently nudging the spacecraft away from the stage. In the sunlight of low Earth orbit, their gold-colored solar panels glinted briefly before deploying. Back at Amazon's Project Kuiper Operations Center, teams monitored the health of each satellite in real time. Telemetry streams confirmed power systems were active, communications were established, and solar arrays were generating electricity. These satellites would now begin a weeks-long journey of orbit-raising maneuvers, using onboard propulsion to drift into their assigned positions within the growing Kuiper constellation. The KF-02 mission alone brought the total deployed satellites to over 100, a crucial step toward Amazon's long-term goal of providing global internet coverage. For now, the mission was declared a complete success. 2 major feats achieved in one launch: flawless satellite deployment and yet another precise booster recovery. The stage was set for the next chapter in the race to connect the world from space. Project Kuiper was never just a technological venture, it was a statement of intent. Amazon's vision for the network extended far beyond offering internet to city dwellers. It was aimed at bridging one of the most persistent gaps in modern infrastructure, the digital divide. In rural and remote regions, where laying fiber optic cables is prohibitively expensive or geographically impossible, satellite-based internet offers a transformative solution. KF-02's payload represented the latest step toward that goal. Each of the 24 Kuipersat satellites was equipped with advanced phased array antennas capable of dynamically redirecting beams of data toward areas of high demand. Unlike traditional satellites with fixed coverage zones, these could adapt in real time to shifts in user activity, emergencies, or network congestion. Onboard processors allowed for faster switching and data handling, minimizing latency and ensuring stable connections even when serving remote islands or mountainous terrain. The ambition was massive, thousands of satellites forming a tightly coordinated constellation, each contributing to a seamless web of coverage over the Earth. In the control rooms and design labs, engineers spoke of Kuiper not just in technical terms, but in human ones. They imagined children in remote Alaskan villages attending virtual classrooms without signal dropouts, farmers in rural Africa receiving weather updates and market prices in real time, disaster zones restoring communication within hours instead of weeks. The technology was the backbone, but the people it could empower were the true focus. KF-02's successful deployment meant another layer of capability added to that vision, expanding the reach of a network that didn't yet exist in its final form but was rapidly taking shape above the planet. Yet, as inspiring as the mission's goals were, the path forward was not without obstacles. The sheer scale of Project Kuiper's ambition made it one of the most complex space-based infrastructure projects ever attempted. Managing orbital positions for thousands of satellites required meticulous coordination to prevent interference or accidental collisions. Each satellite needed to be precisely placed, monitored, and occasionally adjusted to maintain its slot within the constellation. On top of that, the growing number of commercial satellites in low Earth orbit raised concerns from scientists and policymakers about space debris. Amazon had to design Kuipersats with deorbit capabilities, ensuring they could be safely removed from orbit at the end of their lifespan to avoid contributing to the problem. Competition was equally intense. SpaceX's Starlink already had thousands of operational satellites and a head start in customer adoption. OneWeb, Telesat, and other players were carving out their own share of the market. While Kuiper's technology promised competitive performance, success would depend on more than just hardware. It required efficient deployment, competitive pricing, and the ability to scale quickly. To meet its deployment timeline, Amazon had secured launch contracts not only with SpaceX but also with United Launch Alliance and Blue Origin, diversifying its access to space. Each partner brought different capabilities: Falcon 9 for high-frequency, cost-effective launches, ULA's Vulcan for heavy payload lifts, and eventually, Blue Origin's New Glenn for large-scale deployment once operational. The KF-02 mission underscored this unusual business reality. In one arena, SpaceX and Amazon were direct competitors in the satellite internet market, yet in another, they were business partners. SpaceX's Falcon 9 was a proven, reliable workhorse, capable of launching payloads on tight schedules and recovering boosters for reuse. Amazon, recognizing the importance of speed to market, set aside rivalry to take advantage of that capability. For SpaceX, Kuiper missions meant lucrative contracts and full launch manifests. For Amazon, Falcon 9 offered a dependable ride to orbit without waiting years for its own rockets to be ready. The success of KF-02 reinforced that partnerships in the modern space race are often defined less by ideology and more by pragmatism. Delivering satellites quickly and reliably was the priority, and if that meant buying rides from a competitor, so be it. In the months following KF-02, more Kuiper missions were scheduled, each one chipping away at the long road toward operational service. For now, the launch was both a victory and a reminder every satellite in the sky was progress, but the ultimate challenge lay in bringing the network fully online and proving it could deliver on the promises that had inspired its creation in the first place. The KF-02 mission also served as a vivid example of how cooperation and competition can coexist in the modern space industry. On paper, Amazon and SpaceX were rivals, each developing their own satellite internet constellations that would one day be battling for customers around the globe. Yet here they were, working together out of sheer necessity. For Amazon, the choice to book multiple Falcon 9 launches was less about preference and more about logistics. Falcon 9 was the most proven, flight-ready vehicle on the market, with an unmatched cadence and an impressive reliability record. Each successful launch shaved months off Kuiper's deployment schedule, giving Amazon a better chance to close the gap with Starlink's head start. For SpaceX, Kuiper contracts filled its already busy manifest, kept production lines humming, and brought in millions in launch revenue. In an industry where rocket development is costly and risky, such steady income streams were invaluable. The relationship between the two companies was pragmatic rather than friendly. SpaceX's engineers treated Kuiper payloads with the same precision they afforded any customer's hardware: no special favors, no corners cut. The work was purely professional, driven by contracts, timelines, and mission success rates. In turn, Amazon's Kuiper team recognized the advantage of flying with a launch provider that had mastered booster reusability. Each Falcon 9 launch was not just a rocket ride, it was a demonstration of a mature, streamlined launch operation capable of turning vehicles around in record time. For Kuiper's rapid rollout strategy, this efficiency was worth its weight in gold. Looking beyond KF-02, the roadmap for Project Kuiper stretched out over years, with hundreds of launches planned across multiple providers. Amazon's ultimate goal was to have enough satellites in orbit, around 600, to begin limited commercial service. The KF-02 batch brought the total to over 100, a strong start but still a fraction of the full constellation. In the short term, the focus was on building momentum. Every successful launch wasn't just a technical achievement, it was a marketing opportunity, a signal to potential customers, partners, and investors that the project was on track. For the engineers and operators on both sides of the partnership, KF-02's success marked another small but vital victory in a much larger race. The mission had been delayed by weather, tested by complex orbital requirements, and made possible only by the precise choreography of hundreds of people across multiple facilities. The booster's return to a shortfall of gravitas had reinforced SpaceX's position as the world leader in reusable rocketry, while the smooth deployment of 24 Kuipersats showed that Amazon's manufacturing and testing processes were ready for large-scale deployment. As the mission wound down, attention turned quickly to the future. The satellites deployed that morning would spend the coming weeks raising their orbits and drifting into their assigned positions, quietly knitting themselves into the growing Kuiper network. Ground stations around the world would soon be communicating with them, testing connections, and preparing for the day when paying customers could finally log on. In the broader context of the space race, KF-02 was a snapshot of the industry's new reality: rapid launches, reusable vehicles, and the intertwining of competition and collaboration. The next launches were already on the schedule, with each one bringing Kuiper closer to its first operational milestone. For SpaceX, the work would continue almost immediately. Another Falcon 9 would soon be rolled out to the pad, another booster prepped for flight. For Amazon, KF-02 was one more brick laid in the foundation of a network that, if successful, could change the way the world connects. The skies above Earth were becoming more crowded, but also more connected, and missions like KF-02 were a reminder that the race to the stars was no longer about planting flags, it was about building systems that would serve people for decades to come.